In the last video, we left this tab over here, hosts. At this point, we had made it a table, and over in table design, we had named it or renamed the table from table 2, and we gave it this title, hosts. But we didn't bring it into the data model or do anything with it specifically. So let's do that now. We can click on hosts and click somewhere into the table. Next, go up here to the top of the ribbon and select Power Pivot. Then you can select Add to Data Model. And now you'll see in the Power Pivot editor, the host table has been added. And now all of our tables are in the data model. And remember, this is the beauty and the power of Power Pivot. We can bring data from different tables into the same model. And then we can take all of that data and throw it into a pivot table. So we can look at the data in ways that we couldn't if all of this data was left to reside on a table on its own. Another powerful feature is the ability to preview all of this data. I'm going to go up here and click on this square maximize button, and that will just maximize this Power Pivot preview pane or the Power Pivot edit pane. And here we can preview any one of our tables. Let's take a look at the metals table and look at the different headers or columns within it. Edition, we have season, athlete ID, athlete, the country region, the gender, the event gender, sport. This one's a little hard to read, so we can just expand it. Oh, discipline ID, event, medal, medal key, and discipline event. And there's a lot of data in here for us to look at. If I scroll down, we can see that we've got, different discipline events. Sometimes they repeat, sometimes they don't. And that should make sense. Since this is a table for medals, each individual event should appear multiple times because each event in the Olympics, there are 3 medals for. So for each event, you would expect to see the discipline event show up multiple times in the medals table. You could also take a look at the events table. The events table is quite a bit here. There's a lot of events in this table, and it has different columns as well. We have event ID. What is this? Event, just the event. So the event ID and then the event described. Looks like in more detail, we're told what the sport is, the discipline ID, the discipline, the sport ID, and then we've got the discipline event. In the events table, the discipline event is unique. Each discipline and event, right, the very specific event for each discipline, only shows up once. And that should make sense. If you have a table of events, each event is only happening the one time, it would show up once. Whereas in the medals table, because each event is going to have multiple medals, gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal, each event will show up multiple times. We can use this knowledge to help us create a relationship between our tables. Let's go to the top of the ribbon where it says Diagram View. It might be easier to do here. I mentioned earlier that we can grab any of these titles and move them around to help us arrange the data better, and I'm going to do that. So we'll move sports to here, I'll leave disciplines where it is, and I'll move medals over to here. We could also just grab any of these and drag it down, and this is really useful if you have a table with many columns in it. Grab S teams and bring it over here. Put W teams down here. And events, I'd like to make this a bit bigger so I can see everything, and put events over here. And as I've been moving everything around, you may have noticed that even though we added hosts to the data model, I don't see the host table here. But let's just scroll to the right. Yeah, there it is, hosts. Okay, and now we've got everything here and available to see in our view. Let's just make this a bit bigger. So we can use the diagram view to create relationships between tables. We just spent some time looking at the events table, and we identified that the discipline event column contains values that are unique. It's a unique ID for each row. And we looked at the metals table, which has the same field in it, the same column, except there are many instances of a particular discipline event in the rows under this column, under the metals table. There is a one-to-many relationship. And we can draw that as follows: one to many. And we can see the direction of the table relationship right there. Now, once that's been done, it might be hard for you to go back and remember. You might say, wait, which field to which field was it? So you could just kind of hover over with your mouse. You could mouse over the relationship, and it'll put a nice little box around the columns in each table that are related to one another. You could also give it a little click, a double click, and it'll show you a little more information. Now, before I finish off this video, remember we started this video with the intention to bring hosts into the data model. We've brought this table into the data model, and now we can think about, well, do we want to connect it to any of these things? It would be interesting if for a particular sport or for a particular metal, we could see what the host city was as an example. When we take a look, let's go to the data view and look at hosts. So here we are in the data view in Power Pivot, and we are looking at the hosts table. When I look at the host table, what I'm looking for is a column with a unique ID in it as a potential option to connect us to another table. And I don't really see that here. The city I see, here's a city that repeats. Here's a city that repeats. Country region, I don't see that either. Alpha 2 code, whatever that is. I see repetition. Looks like the Alpha 2 code represents the country region, but just with 2 alpha characters. The addition, I think that's the year. This might have a unique, no, it's not. I've got duplicates there, and the season definitely not. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how we can deal with a table like this, how we can create a table, create a column to a table that will help us link it into a data model in a more meaningful way.